Want a website with unmatched power, speed, and control? Try Bluehost Cloud, the new web hosting plan from Bluehost, built for WordPress creators by WordPress experts. With 100% uptime, incredible load times, and 24/7 WordPress priority support, your sites will be lightning fast with global reach. And with Bluehost Cloud, your sites can handle surges in traffic no matter how big. Plus, you automatically get daily backups and world-class security. Get started now at Bluehost.com.
You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Archaeology Show. TAS goes behind the headlines to bring you the real stories about archaeology and the history around us. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Archaeology Show, episode 264.
On today's show, we talk about Egypt.
Let's dig a little deeper, but not with shovels, with science. Welcome to the show, everyone. How's it going?
Pretty good.
So, for our diehard listeners, we have traveled into the future compared to the episode you're going to listen to next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're following along with our adventures.
Yeah. So we're traveling right now, which means we're trying to get ahead, which we're doing a very mediocre job of right now.
Yes.
We did record one episode ahead. We're so excited. It's a fantastic interview with one of our fabulous hosts on the APN, and that's coming next week. So we were still in Washington when we recorded that episode.
Yeah.
But now we have to tell you about where we're at right now because this is the only way we're going to be here, but we're in Montana. And I'm literally looking out the window that I can see from my recording spot, and it's just like mountain.
Yeah.
It's like big mountain, like Yellowstone, big mountain. We're a few hours north of Yellowstone right now, but basically the same mountain range. It's amazing here.
I know. We were kind of going for, if you've seen the show Yellowstone, if you're going for that vibe.
Yeah.
We're not quite there because we're more penned in than just like this open field kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we're really penned in by mountains around, and it's kind of cool.
It's
and we can
so
hear
gorgeous.
a waterfall in the distance.
Yeah.
There's almost nobody else in this Forest Service campground.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't see anybody else from where we're sitting.
It's not the easiest thing to get to, so I get it. We had to go an hour off the interstate to get here, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but oh my gosh, is it worth it? And since we travel with our own internet and we can be in a place like this and still work, it's just fantastic that our office view this week is basically the backside of Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what else isn't easy to get to?
What would that be?
Anomalies underneath royal graveyards in Egypt.
I mean, I think bam, done. That's the article.
Indeed. So I got to say, for archaeologists, talking about a couple of things gets people to roll their eyes.
Yes.
Some of those are Romans, Stonehenge, Belize.
Not Belize. Leave Belize alone. We've barely even talked about Belize. No, I won't give you that one. No.
Egypt.
Yes,
Yeah.
Egypt's on that list.
Right.
Egypt, they don't even call themselves archaeologists. They're Egyptologists.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Right. Well, and it's partly because they study the culture of Egypt,
I
not
know.
just archaeology as a science.
Yes,
right? It's not study of culture.
Exactly.
Necessarily. Right.
And it is a much bigger field because they have written records and they're comparing written texts, or hieroglyphics with the archaeological remains that they're finding. They're marrying this picture together with historical texts and archaeology and all of it. So it's just a much bigger and more complicated field, I think, which is why it gets its own thing.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, there is some amazing stuff there.
I know.
And they're so good at publicizing and marketing it too. Egypt is so good at getting announcements and things out into the media, I think. Don't you think so?
I do. And the simple fact is, people love Egypt. I mean, your standard non-Egyptologist might not love Egypt, but that's just because Egypt gets so much press.
Yeah.
And they're
probably jealousy.
Hey, my little pottery type that's from some mountain range that nobody's ever heard of in central whatever the hell. Yeah. That also is cool. But yeah, that is cool.
It is very cool.
But it's not Egypt.
It's just, it doesn't have the gravitas that Egypt does, So
we found one article. In fact, I saw this article a couple of weeks ago, and it was kind of before it got big. Yeah. And I just randomly saw it. And I didn't think, I thought it was kind of neat. I didn't think too much about it. We were doing some other things. And then it started to kind of blow up. Yeah. And then we found some other articles and we decided to just make an Egypt episode.
Yeah. We haven't really talked a lot about Egyptian finds recently. I don't think there hasn't been a lot of news. And then all of a sudden there was a bunch of them. So we're like, cool. Today is Egypt in the news.
Yeah. So this first article is from Smithsonian Magazine. And
my favorite.
Yeah. Although right now it's really pissing me off because it's just opening ad after ad after ad.
Go into Reader View.
If you have Reader View on a smart device, like an iOS device, definitely do that.
Yeah.
But it's called Scientists Are Investigating a Puzzling Underground Anomaly Near the Giza Pyramids.
Yeah, this was really cool. And I think it has been pretty widely reported at this point, too, almost as much as the article you were just hinting at that we're going to talk about next. And so this anomaly was found beneath a royal graveyard near the Great Pyramid of Khufu.
Yeah.
And the necropolis has many above ground monuments known as mastabas for the pharaoh's family and high ranking officials. Mm-hmm. That's sort of like how they buried their dead in this time period.
Yeah, the mastabas are rectangular on the ground surface with a flat roof constructed out of limestone or mud bricks. So what are these, like just burial chambers kind of things or representations?
Yeah. Yes.
I guess.
But what makes these tombs unique is that below the surface level, they have these vertical shafts that go straight down and they connect to underground chambers, which provide space for more than one burial. So I think these are sort of the openings to what could be many burials. And a lot of them connect to each other underneath the ground too. So it's sort of this underground network of like catacombs similar to what you get in Europe, but the Egyptian version of that. So yeah.
It is amazing how much subsurface stuff the Egyptians did.
Yeah.
Just like so much.
Because it was so hot on the surface, maybe? Was that?
I don't know. I think they just like their secrecy, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Because a lot of the stuff under the surface is all burial chambers. It's not like they live down there.
Yeah.
It's all
true.
associated with burials and graves and things like that. But they just had such extensive networks and really impressive structures underground.
And grave goods were very, very important to these cultures, and they wanted to protect those from looters too. So I suppose going down and making it hard to get to was one way of protection just from like surface people. Yeah.
A lot of the mastabas were excavated in the 20th century, but one was left unexcavated because of lack of surface features, basically.
Yeah. There's no tombs there.
Didn't seem interesting.
Yeah. Why go there, right?
Yeah. Joint effort in 2021 and 2023 between researchers from Higashi Nippon International University in Japan and Tohoku University in Japan and the National Research Institute of Astronomy and Geophysics in Egypt analyzed this overlooked area.
Yeah.
And rather than using traditional excavation, they used ground penetrating radar, which seems like an awesome thing to use in Egypt.
Yeah, definitely.
And electrical resistivity tomography to study the area. Now, I don't have to read the paper. I'm a little surprised at resistivity only because moisture in the ground is kind of a high component for resistivity. But anyway. I
don't really know how resistivity works. I get the ground penetrating radar. You're looking for differences in the soil, basically, right? Like that's how that works.
Yeah, now that I'm saying it, I've done resistivity before, but I can't remember if moisture is good or bad for resistivity. I mean, they used it and it seemed to work, and it's a desert, so obviously it was okay.
Yeah, they didn't really go into specifics on the methodology in the Smithsonian article.
Right.
So
they believe what they found below the surface was a shallow L-shaped structure connected to a deeper structure.
Yeah. So the L-shaped structure is 33 feet long and buried 6.5 feet deep.
Yeah.
And scans of it indicate that it was filled in with sand after construction. They don't say specifically when. They don't say if it was, but they can't know. They haven't excavated yet. So we don't know how or when it was filled in by people who did it in the moment or centuries later. That's impossible to say right now until they excavate.
Right. Yeah, they think it could have been an entrance to a deeper structure, potentially, as they do in Egypt, of course.
Yeah.
The deeper structure is a highly resistive anomaly. I guess that's what they use their resistivity for.
Yeah.
It could be empty or filled with a material like sand or gravel.
It's crazy that both empty and something filled with sand or gravel would present the same in something like this. But I guess what they're really detecting is the difference between the natural ground and whatever these anomalies are, right? Yeah. Is that essentially what these methods bedrock. Are doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah.
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 Either way, what these indicate is that there may be buried archaeological remains. So there's something down there.
Yeah.
They're saying they need to dig.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. And that's the nice thing about some of these non-destructive subsurface techniques is you don't spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in time just wasting your time.
Yeah,
right. I mean, there's something down there you can pinpoint and say, yep, here's where we need to go. So I mean, that's the whole point of that whole exercise.
The problem with these kind of techniques, though, is that, yes, they point out what they call an anomaly, but that anomaly could just have been like a backfill pile from somewhere else that they were excavating, you know?
I mean,
it's just out of place. It's out of place sand or an empty space, right? And they don't know until they start excavating. So,
but at least they know it's something.
They do know it's something, but I guess a backfill pile might still have some archaeological knowledge to share, but that's what could be disappointing about it. But it could be another amazing underground tomb, like, you know, King Tut again. King Tut part 2, right?
I know. It's Egypt. It's probably the tip of another pyramid.
We could only hope it's something as amazing as that. Who knows? But we do know that excavations have already begun. Yeah. So Egyptians, man, they move quick and they love their archaeology there. So that hopefully we'll know soon what they have found or, you know, not found.
For all we know, it's the yacht club for another branch of the Nile.
Oh, geez.
We'll find out on the other side of the break. Back in a minute.
Is your vehicle stopping like it should? Does it squeal or grind when you brake? Don't miss out on summer brake deals at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Welcome back to the Archaeology Show, episode 264. And we're talking about the Egyptian Yacht Club. Get to that in a minute.
Definitely not what we're talking about. But go on.
I'm sure they had one. All right. So the article we're talking about is from CNN, but again, it's everywhere now.
Yes, everywhere.
And this one is in particular is titled Newly Mapped Lost Branch of the Nile Could Help Solve a Long-Standing Pyramid Mystery. So Egypt's Great Pyramid and other ancient monuments at Giza exist on an isolated strip of land at the edge of the Sahara Desert. Mm-hmm. Pretty hard to get to and do things with. Quite a ways from the Nile.
Yes. And this is a moment where, not our words, this would be CNN's words, this location has puzzled archaeologists.
Yes.
I'm not sure they're as puzzled as, you know, you might think, because this idea that we're about to go into has been hypothesized for a long time, but these researchers are finally filling in the evidence. Mm-hmm. And that hypothesis is that the Nile likely flowed near the pyramids and probably helped facilitate their construction beginning about 4,700 years ago. So there was water there to use as transportation for all of the work that was going on. Yeah,
rivers move.
Yes.
And that's not uncommon, right? Mm-hmm. Rivers move. And it's just, they've never had proof of it before. You know, where has this branch been? I mean, sand doesn't really present well when it comes to this, right? Next time you're flying over the U.S. Midwest or anywhere in Europe, basically, that doesn't have a city on it and where they've penned in some sort of river with a channel, if you're looking over farmland or something like that, anytime you see an oxbow lake or something like that, that's where a river has moved. A river has moved. And sometimes when you see those little lakes coming off of rivers, that oxbow lake is where they've basically either it naturally dammed itself up or they just dammed it up and the river straightened itself back out again. Yeah. And then you've got this little lake right there.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can see dried up old oxbows too when you look at the aerial images of a lot of rivers, especially super windy ones that are really active and constantly moving, because it's easy to see it when it's been more recent geologic activity, but what we're talking about with the Nile is from a really long time ago. So I think it's less, not as easy to see. And it's also in an area that has a lot of farming going on. Right. So the farming has really affected the landscape as well. So, yeah. I
know. Understanding how landscapes form and how water moves is one of the things that helps you understand how cultures adapt to landscapes. Yeah. And one of my favorite classes I ever took in grad school was called fluvial geomorphology.
I remember you taking that.
Oh my God.
It sounded so complicated.
It was just a really fun class to take. Yeah. And it was just so interesting. And one of my favorite words that I learned in that class that I always remember is anastomosing.
Oh, okay.
I know. And it's basically when a river comes down a pathway and basically branches off into a bunch of little branches. Okay. And it happens when you've got, not a solid pathway, but a bunch of little pathways, it's coming down we saw this actually just driving over the weekend, where it's branching out over this wide expanse or something like that. And there's a bunch of trees and little islands and all this stuff. It's just tons of little pathways.
Is it there's just a lot of directions it can go, and being water, it will go in every direction that is easy for it to go, basically.
It probably collects up downstream somewhere.
Yeah.
But it branches out in lots of different places. That was just a cool word to learn.
Yeah.
But all of that has impacts on the landscape.
Right.
And people learn to adapt to that. Animals learn to adapt to that.
Right.
And generally when the animals learn to adapt to that, well, the people learn to adapt to where the animals are.
Yeah.
So, you get a whole bunch of things happening.
Yeah, totally.
And also pyramids learn to adapt to that. So.
Well, actually, I don't think the pyramids adapted very well because the water left them, but the pyramids didn't move. So, okay. So what we're talking about is a new study published in the Journal of Communications, Earth and Environment. And they have mapped a 64-kilometer branch of the Nile that no longer exists.
Yeah. They use satellite images and analyses of core sediment to create a map.
Yeah.
And the map in the CNN article here comes straight from the article.
Yes.
And it's pretty good.
It's so cool to look at. I need these visual touch points, right? To see and understand exactly what we're talking about and how this would have looked,
Mm-hmm.
Definitely check out the map.
I know they call this the ancient Aramat branch.
Aramat,
I think somewhere I read that Aramat is actually Arabic for pyramid.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
It's Ahramat.
I know. I can't. I want to say Aramat. Oh, it is Aramat.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Amarat. I keep wanting to say Amarat, but that's wrong. It's Aramat.
No.
Yeah. Anyway, it would have been about half a kilometer wide, the branch, and at least at its biggest, a third of a mile.
Yeah.
Because the Nile is a big, wide river to begin with.
Yeah.
And at least 25 meters or 82 feet deep, which is similar to the Nile today.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they say in the actual article, the actual Nile proper, if this was the only one or if it was also flowing.
I had that exact same question and I wasn't able to figure out the answer to that. If it was two rivers or back in this time, or if it was one and this was the main route. I don't know.
Also, was this diverted by the Egyptians?
I don't know if they could divert a half a kilometer wide river.
Just takes one spot.
Maybe.
No, they would have had to. Why would I just build the pyramids somewhere else?
They would have just built the pyramids by the. Yeah, there's no point in doing that. So.
Yeah. Anyway, it runs roughly parallel to the current path of the Nile, which is no surprise.
Yep.
Gravity. It also runs right along the base of not only the Great Pyramids, but also pyramids at Abu Sir, Saqqara, Dashur, and the Lisht pyramids. And again, look at the map. It's quite obvious that these pyramids were built there for a reason.
Yeah, they're just in this perfect little line. I feel like stuff doesn't always map out so perfectly like this, but this really does. It makes me wonder if they're omitting anomalies, if there are other pyramids that don't fit into this map. There probably are, but the thing is that the water wasn't the only reason to build a pyramid.
Sure.
So yeah.
Yeah, many of the pyramids in the study have a causeway or ceremonial raised walkway that is perpendicular to this branch of the river and end where the riverbank would have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's almost
it seems pretty obvious, right?
Yeah, it's almost like they knew it was there.
Wait, hold on. But we do, and they did, and now we both know.
We both know.
Okay.
But they don't know that we know that they know we know.
Ridiculous. Okay, so the soil in the cores they collected reveal sandy sediment consistent with a river channel at a depth of about 25 meters or 82 feet, which is where they're getting the maximum depth of that. So that's where they know the river channel bottom would have been. And it's unclear why it dried up. It might have been after a long period of drought. A drought would have brought a large amount of sand to the region and it could have silted in this branch. That's sort of the leading hypothesis, I guess. Mm-hmm.
So I guess the most important thing is that mapping this branch gives us some more evidence that the ancient Egyptians used the natural landscape to help build the pyramids. And one of the articles that I saw initially, just what helps us understand how they actually did that was, people often wondered how they got a lot of the rock and stone and things to build these pyramids to where they got it. Mm-hmm. And I mean, seems to be pretty clear evidence now that wherever they quarried this from, and we know where some of the quarries are too, that they could have floated it on barges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the manpower to move it across the landscape would have been insane. And it would have been so hard on the people too. So having water be part of the process of moving these super heavy materials only makes sense. And while this is not direct evidence that they were moving stone with river, the fact that they all line up along this extinct river branch just makes sense that that's what they would use. I mean, people are still people and they're going to use the path of least resistance, right? That is the easiest way to do it. So it just helps fill in that picture of how they were doing this. Please, can we remove the A word from the table? Was not involved. There was
Arabs?
No. I don't even want to say it, but aliens, like that kind of thing. We just need to remove that. These people were so smart. They had engineers that were amazing. They were completely able to figure out how to do all of this just using the power of their minds and their landscape. So, and this is just more evidence to help like clarify the picture of how exactly they did that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, just using the power of water, and it just makes me wonder, I want to see some alternative history fiction or something like that, where like 4700 BC, where they're floating these, you know, big heavy rocks and stones down the river and building these pyramids, where somebody's just builds a wheel and starts moving water. And then somebody's like, hey, you know, accidentally invents electricity. And then all of a sudden you've got Egyptian steampunk, you know, like 3000 BC. Why not? Why didn't they invent electricity back then? Imagine what our world would look like if electricity had been invented 5,000 years ago. You know, where would we be right now?
Yeah, it would be really cool to see an alternate history where that happened.
Why did that take so long?
I mean, it's a necessity thing, right? Like need equals, you know, and
it's also an invention kind of thing. You don't know you need it until it's invented.
Yeah.
They didn't invent electricity because they needed it.
They didn't even know to think of it, though. No, I guess.
I understand that, but it's not like, again, it's not like it was invented because it was needed. You know, the steam engine wasn't invented because it was needed. Things were invented because somebody said, I want to, I'm tinkering with this thing and look what happened.
Well, that is some inventions, but some inventions are, I need to do this thing better than it's being done right now. Sure. And so need does drive that invention.
I mean, when they're rocking around down in the catacombs with torches, you don't think somebody's going, there's got to be a better way. You know, they're in the middle of a pyramid going, I can't even see the walls right now. Seriously?
Have you not seen like every movie ever where there's all these oil lamps built into the wall and you light one point and it lights up the whole room? Obviously, they figured it out. That's oil-driven electricity. Lamp-driven electricity.
Well, maybe they couldn't figure it out because pharaohs were just building royal retreats and not focusing on inventions. Back in a minute.
That kind of went off the rails.
Well, we got a minute. I'm going to buy that truck I've been wanting.
Wait, don't you need like weeks to shop for a car?
I don't. Carvana makes it super convenient to find exactly what I want.
Hold up. You're buying a car on your phone? Isn't that more of a laptop thing?
You can shop wherever you want.
I like to do my research, read reviews, compare models. Plus, Carvana has thousands of options. How'd you decide on that truck?
Because I like it.
Oh, that is a great reason.
Go to Carvana.com to sell your car the convenient way.
Is your vehicle stopping like it should? Does it squeal or grind when you brake? Don't miss out on summer brake deals at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Welcome back to the Egyptology Show, episode 264.
We need an Egyptology show.
If there are any Egyptologists listening,
I want to do a podcast.
You've probably turned it off by now.
Yeah, probably. You probably hate everything we said.
Yeah, but if you're still listening and you're just like angrily writing out an email right now, instead turn it into a proposal for a podcast.
Yeah, totally. That would be amazing.
Send it to Tristan at archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.
There you go.
Anyway. So this next one is from all over the internet, but we have two sources, one from archaeology.org, the Archaeological Institute of America, and also from Newsweek. The Newsweek article is Archaeologists Discover Ancient Egyptian Pharaohs' Fortified Royal Retreat.
Yeah, and I'm going to explain what I was just telling you before we started recording, that I found this article and I pulled in the Newsweek article first because I was like, oh, it's so much longer. There's probably a lot more information here. And I was reading through it and kind of filling in our notes for this segment. And I was like, you know, this is kind of like fluffy and like very surface level information about this site. So then I went to the archaeology article and there's one paragraph, right? One paragraph compared to this much longer Newsweek article. And in that one paragraph, they concisely share so much more information about this site. So I would say if you don't have time to read two articles and only want to read one, go for the archaeology one. It's much more concise and you'll get all the information you need. Anyway, that being said, let's talk talk about it.
That's right.
Difference in journalism, right? Like
exactly.
The archaeology one is just much more like science focused. And then the Newsweek one, you know, they probably just went to the archaeology one and pulled out some details and then filled it in with all this like other fluffy stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yes.
Well, they got the clicks from us.
They did. And now we're sending them more. You're welcome.
That's right. All right. Well, this particular retreat, I guess, discovered at the archaeological site of Tel Hebwa in the north of the Sinai Peninsula.
Yeah, and preliminary research indicates it dates to the reign of King Thutmose III, who was the 6th pharaoh of the 18th dynasty of the New Kingdom period. That is so much, but ancient Egypt is so big and lasted for so long that they have to break it out into smaller chunks like that. That's
how time travelers are going to find Egypt. That's their address.
That is so funny to me. I don't know why. Like I could just see like sitting in a time travel machine and like typing in like 6th pharaoh, 18th dynasty, New Kingdom, go.
You got like scroll wheels.
Yeah.
6th, 8th. No, yeah. What is it again?
Wait, hold on. Oh no, wrong one. Okay, off the rails again. This is why we shouldn't podcast in the morning while we're drinking coffee.
It's better than podcasting evening drinking wine.
Maybe it is. Okay.
Anyway,
so King Thutmose, he was awesome.
Yeah, he reigned from 1479 BCE until he died in 1425 BCE, which is a long time, over 50 years.
Yeah. He is known as Thutmose the Great because he was an excellent military commander, and through various campaigns, he expanded the Egyptian empire to its greatest extent. So he did a lot of conquering.
Yeah, I don't think his neighbors thought he was Thutmose the Great.
Maybe not so much. But
probably, I think he was Thutmose the not so awesome.
Yeah.
Thutmose the oh crap, here he comes again.
Yeah, he definitely was good for Egypt, but maybe not anywhere else. So.
Thutmose the Great pain in the ass.
Yeah.
It's all about perspective.
Yes, it totally is.
Anyway, they're calling this place the Royal Rest House because of both the layout and the lack of pottery shards, which is interesting.
By the way, Newsweek said shards.
Oh, did they really?
They did.
Oh, Newsweek.
Yeah.
They probably saw shards in whatever article they read.
And they're like, oh, typo. Yeah.
They hypothesized he used it during his military campaigns to expand Egypt to the east. The structure was made of mud brick, which is like lots of structures there.
Yes, that's pretty common, I think.
Yeah. The entrance is located on the northern side and led to a large hall with 3 columns, the first of 2 halls.
Yeah. And then this hall connected to a smaller one with entrances that were flanked by columns. And you can see that in the picture. There's a pretty good image in both of the articles that we linked to of just like that sort of perfect cleaned off image of a excavated archaeological site, right?
Yeah.
And there's like these little white round spots in some of the areas. And I think that those are the columns that they're referring to. Yeah, I think that is the large hall because that's got 3 columns I see in the image. Mm-hmm. And then I'm guessing the smaller hall is not actually in this picture, but, or maybe it is because the scale is pretty big, isn't it, on that? Yeah. So anyway, look at the picture. You'll see the whole thing cleaned off and all pretty for its picture day. Yeah,
just for anyone looking at the Newsweek article, that scale rod that's in the lower left-hand corner, you can see that that's got 10 divisions, which tells me that that's probably 10 centimeters per division, which means that's probably a meter.
That's probably a meter, yeah.
Yeah, so if you're trying to figure out,
how big
where that's going, it's probably a meter, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, they try to, anytime they don't say what the scale is in the photo, which they probably do in the actual article.
Probably, yeah.
You usually list what your scale is. But if they don't, then it's some standard unit of measurement, right?
Yeah.
Which has got to be a meter.
And it does, just to point out really quick, it does seem like this is sort of a preliminary press release situation. I don't think that this is reporting on the actual like scientific article or journal or whatever that's been written yet. It's just a, hey, look what we found kind of thing.
Which is another thing that archaeologists hate about Egyptologists.
They do a lot of this press release.
And it's not necessarily even Egyptologists. It's more like the Antiquities Department of Egypt. They love releasing press releases because Egyptology is, it's the thing that...
It drives their tourism.
It drives their tourism, which you got to appreciate. I mean, it brings in funding. It brings in all kinds of stuff. So, but a lot of other places just,
It's very preliminary and you're drawing conclusions about something that you can't really say for sure yet because you don't have the actual evidence, the scientific evidence to back it up yet. Now, the conclusions that you're drawing might be true or accurate. It's just they're not proven yet.
Yeah.
So anyway, I can see the problems, but also like it's just really nice to see a country that takes such pride in its ancient history and wants to share it with the world. So I can appreciate it from that respect.
Yeah, this entire structure was protected by a perimeter wall. And this other fact here, which is even more interesting to me, was that there were also burials related to later periods in Egyptian history that date to 1070 and 713 BCE.
Between 1070 and
Yeah. Which either way is still 500 years later.
It is.
Or more.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so was this structure in use around then? Was it just known about in there? Why would you bury people around it?
They just...
Like, what's going on there?
They think that it was sort of just opportunistic.
Yeah.
It's that, from my reading of it, that's what I understood. It was sort of an opportunistic use of this structure as a cemetery later on.
That's weird.
When it was abandoned by the people that originally built it, you know? So
I don't know.
Yeah.
Strange.
Yeah, but really cool to see a structure that is, you know, potentially connected to a pharaoh. And yet so far from where the pharaoh's hub would have been, right?
Yeah.
Like this is not near Cairo. This is in the Sinai Peninsula, which is that sort of little dingleberry that's off to the side for Egypt.
I'm sure.
Should I take that out? Maybe I shouldn't say that.
All of Egypt would love that you called the Sinai Peninsula a place with 10,000 years of history.
I'm going to edit that out. I'm not leaving it in.
Leave it in.
No, I'm not going to. But anyway, so yeah, it is quite far from where the seat of the empire would have been. So yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's enough Egyptology for today.
Yeah.
Again, if you are an Egyptologist and you're listening to this, sorry, first off. Second, if you hated everything you heard, please call me, or not call me. What is it?
Wow.
What is it, 1999?
1992?
Yeah. 92. Oh, frame of reference. Yeah. But email me, chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com, and let's do an Egyptology podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's plenty to talk about.
Yeah, I think that would be amazing.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, I think we will do one little plug for members so we can afford an Egyptology podcast. And arcpodnet.com/members. You know, a couple times I've actually typed that in just to make sure that's working.
Yeah.
And it redirects to archaeologypodcastnetwork.com's homepage. So if for some reason that doesn't work, just archaeologypodcastnetwork.com/members. Arcpodnet.com is something we also own, but occasionally it will just redirect itself back to the homepage.
Yeah.
No matter what you type in.
I mean, honestly, you can get to it just by clicking on the link in the show notes to go to the show. And then if you try to log in, it's not going to let you, and then you can just create an account right there if you're interested in becoming a member. So,
and if you want to know, more about what you get from member page, just click on any link to go to our homepage, or to the APN webpage. Click shop in the upper right hand corner, and you'll see membership of the APN is something you can buy. Yeah, and it tells you what benefits you get.
Yeah, I mean, and the biggest benefit is just that it's a donation to us to help us keep this going. And podcasting is not free, but we make all the content for free. So it's just helpful.
It costs as much as a 4-shot flavored grande latte with extra stuff on it from Starbucks.
One per month. Yeah. If you can give up one of those and do this instead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Then you're furthering archaeological education in the world.
Yeah, I agree.
Do your part. Okay.
Wow. that little pledge drive just went to massive guilt trip. All right. I might edit that out too. We'll see.
No. All right. With that, we're going to go, beg for scraps until we get more members.
No, we're going to go hike to a waterfall.
Oh, yeah. We're going to do that instead.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to The Archaeology Show. Feel free to comment and view the show notes on the website at www.arcpodnet.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at ArcPodNet. Music for this show is called I Wish You Would Look from the band Sea Hero. Again, thanks for listening and have an awesome day. This episode was produced by Chris Webster from his RV traveling the United States, Tristan Boyle in Scotland, DigTech LLC, Culturo Media, and the Archaeology Podcast Network, and was edited by Rachel Roden.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.arcpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.